Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Today, I'm here with Zach Snyder of Alloy Architecture and Construction. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Hey, Eric. Good to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you spending some time with us today. So maybe why don't we just kick it off with a little bit of background, how you got started, who you are, where you're from, what got you into construction, things like that.
Okay. Alloy Architecture and Construction is my business. We're based in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we've been operating. My business partner and I started the business in 2007. So right as the wave was crashing around us, I always say we just grabbed the rails of our surfboard and held on. I had no idea what we were doing as the economy was crumbling around us.
Sure.
Started in 2007. Currently, we run at about 3.5 million in revenue a year. We're design build. And most of our projects are by the math, our average project is $250,000 custom renovations, remodels, and additions is our sweet spot. We'll do an occasional new house, but our sweet spot is definitely in the custom remodel business.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll never forget. We met. What was it, back in September at the Remodeler Summit in DC.
Yeah.
So I knew you had to be doing at least $1 million, I think, to be part of that group. So
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show that we had there, and really, I think, kind of one of our first times to start meeting some of those larger, builders and remodelers. So, I'm sure you remember. I got really excited when you came by our booth and started talking to us, because I remembered seeing you on the website of one of our competitors. So
yeah,
that was a cool opportunity to actually meet you in person after I'd seen you.
Yeah, and I think I was actually doing a presentation about that competitor's system at that.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think you're with Tate Watson. He was talking about Job Tread, and you're talking about the other one. And I guess I came up and talked to you after. But man, it's been really neat getting to kind of getting to know you over the last several months. And you came down to Job Tread Connect, and I think that you guys have a really interesting story, and how you go about kind of doing all of your designs and builds, and the remodeling process. So maybe though, before we get into that, I mean, how'd you get into construction in the first place? I mean, weren't you like a big athlete before this? And
no, so I mean, it's a long story, but basically, I came to this by following my interests, and I think it's just always been something that I have liked doing, tinkering with stuff and building. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad had like a workshop in the back behind the house, and we just build stuff. Like, we built a kayak when I was in high school, and just stuff like that. So I was just I like putting stuff together. I went to college, basically studied forestry and like outdoor recreation, and then spent a few years as a logger in the Northeast, cutting trees in the woods, which was an awesome job. But like, I really, just didn't see myself doing that forever. And I always knew that like residential construction was something that was appealing to me. Like, I just always liked people that I met through the years that were in the industry. Just seemed like really genuine people that I resonated with. And I was always just curious about how these things that we live in are put together. So at some point, I decided to move away from the Northeast and down here to Charlottesville. And I just found an ad in the paper for a small contracting firm that was hiring. And that was how I got started in the business. And, that was in the early 2000s. And like, at that time, and maybe it's still that way today, but it was like, it felt like if you wanted to go places and kind of like climb a ladder, if you will, in this industry, you kind of had to go off on your own. There
Sure.
was, you know, a lot of the small companies that were out there now didn't really present a path forward. It was just, you know, come, you know, put in your time, learn a trade. And, you know, plenty of people are happy with that. But I just knew that I wanted more. And at that time in the, you know, early mid 2000s, I mean, anybody could get work. Um, and so I just, you know, got my contractor's license and started getting jobs. And several years later, met Dan Zimmerman, my business partner, who's an architect, and he was doing the same thing I was on his own. As he was doing, you know, he was doing different kind of projects, but we just both knew we wanted to work together, and started the business. And so yeah, it was just like, I think I never approached this industry as like, you know, I didn't go to business school, and I wasn't out there looking like, well, what can I do that's going to like really generate a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
That wasn't the motivator. It was more just like, what is it that I find interesting to do with my time, and
Sure.
ultimately, you know, I think one of the challenges that we, you know, I think it was like the 2010, 2012, somewhere in there, we kind of finally realized that like, oh, we've got to figure this out to like make it real and learn how to run a business. And that's when, you know, we started paying attention to, you know, what's the difference between margin and markup, and
Yeah.
how do we make that happen, and what should we be charging people, and how do we sell things.
So you actually started out like in the field doing the work yourself?
That's right. Yep. I was a carpenter.
Okay, nice. And worked your way up. And I guess, I mean, how did you, at what point did you kind of take yourself out of the field and start working more on the business side of it?
Yeah. So that was after starting Alloy in 2010, or I'm sorry, we started in 2007. Around 2010 or 11, we just got some substantial jobs and hired a bunch of people. And I think that's when my role shifted to be more of like a project manager and less of a, you know, I wasn't wearing the tool belt anymore.
Sure.
And I think it was even a few years after that, like that was more just like, just kind of controlled skid. Like, okay, I know we need to be doing stuff and like putting out fires every day, and
Yeah.
managing a crew, and you know, the money. And I think we paid attention to estimating and trying to sell these jobs. Often, you know, we undersold a lot of projects, I'm sure. And I think it was several years after that where it was like, okay, it's time to get serious about how to make this business work. And I think so then, you know, my role was, you know, kind of construction department manager, and now finally, just in the last year, we've hired an estimator and a production manager, and my role is more just kind of high level business stuff, which I really enjoy. And now it's like, you know, I look at it like, while I'm not, you know, building things with my tools that I, you know, I do miss sometimes, but I'm building a business that works really well, and I like that, and building these systems and processes that we can implement and make things work better for everybody. That's kind of what motivates me now.
So when you and Dan first started the business, did you guys like, how did you decide who was going to do what? Like, did one of you focus on sales, the other one focus on, you know, operations, or like how did you decide to partner, and how'd that come together?
Yeah, I wish we had that much clarity about it. Although it was a good partnership from the beginning because we had very different skill sets. I had done a couple of projects prior to us working together with some other, you know, very kind of loose partnerships with people who are also carpenters. And I think it's like, you know, having a partnership with someone who shares your skill set it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
But when Dan and I started working together, we realized that like, oh, he's an architect and I'm a builder. So like that, you know, inherently that meshes. And those are two very different skill sets. But also we just have a different approach to things. Like that I think is complementary and offers some balance. I think like, I mean, you know, I don't need to get into it, but we just have we just have different kind of approaches to the world and different personalities, and it works well, I think, giving balance to our clients and the other people in our office.
I'm sure also just having, and I know from all the companies that I've been part of, like having, at least someone, a partner, a leadership team, like just a couple others there with you on that journey. Cause, being an entrepreneur, it's definitely a roller coaster. Like they say, a lot of ups, but a lot of downs. And, I assume having that partner there from the beginning was something that maybe hopefully stabled it out a little bit for you.
Yeah, very much so. So it's like, like we definitely help each other. We push each other when we need to be pushed, or kind of help talk ourselves off of problems. And we definitely, because we approach things differently, it makes problem solving very different. And, I think it is help. And like I said, when we met, like we both liked doing what we were doing, but we knew we wanted to be working with somebody else. And I think maybe we probably couldn't have articulated it that way at the time, but it's that, it's like sharing this burden with somebody is very helpful.
Sure. So have you guys seen like your roles in the companies change over the years? And like, has it just kind of naturally happened, or has it happened out of, necessity, or?
Yeah, a little of both. I mean, I think naturally, as we've kind of grown and developed the company, it's necessitated us being more specific and intentional about the roles that we have. And so now, Dan is he's more kind of marketing and sales, and very much leads our, because like the design process is while we're doing very intentional designs, it's really the pipeline to construction, which is the 90% of our revenue. So it's a very long, and I don't want to I'm not diminishing the value of what the architecture department does, but it's this long drawn out sales process.
Sure.
And so naturally that's become Dan's role, and he's really good at it and does a great job getting out there and meeting new clients, and that's so and then marketing and kind of like brand identity and all that is in Dan's role.
Sure. And are you guys, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you have from a sales marketing standpoint? I mean, how are you getting your leads today? Has it changed over the years? I mean, did COVID, have any effect on it? Like what's working there? What's not?
For us, the biggest challenge has always been setting the right expectations up front. Mm-hmm. I think the hardest thing is to not sell ourselves short from the outset, and to appropriately weed out the clients that aren't going to be a good match for us.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, budget or otherwise. And so, I think, starting out, it's interesting to think back 15 years and it was like, oh yeah, we'll do that. Sure. We'll do that too. Anything that came our way was, we did. I remember building this like sculptural shelf thing for a guy who manages a music booking company here. Like his girlfriend commissioned me to build this thing. I was like, yeah, we'll do that, whatever. And then, meanwhile, we're renovating a 100-year-old house for the city that they're building an office in. This is like all these different things. And so, and then you kind of have to, at a certain point, you have to learn like, okay, there's value to focus, and
sure.
that strategy is often more important than optimizing operations to your long-term success.
Yeah, that makes sense. And have you, what kind of challenges have you had to face on, the project management, operation side of it, that you think maybe you wish you would have known back in the beginning how you could have made things smoother, or,
That's a good question. I think, now it's finding people to do the work, I think, is the biggest challenge. We're lucky, we have an awesome crew, and we're structured. Our structure is much more pared down than it used to be. 10 years ago, we were trying to do all the carpentry and construction work in-house. And now we have like 3 project managers and 2 staff carpenters, and everything else the bulk of our work we try to subcontract. I think that's a lesson I wish I would have learned sooner.
Yeah.
And that's not the right model for everybody, but it works really well for us. It allows us to be more flexible and scalable. But I think it's just, even if I wanted to have, 10 carpenters on staff, I would have a really hard time finding it. And I think like, it's just a different environment. When I was 20 years old, like I said, I got out of college, I was like, wow, I want to try logging. Like, that sounds like fun, and I don't know, like, it's just different now. I don't see young people getting into the trades and saying like, that seems like a viable option for me.
Sure.
But maybe I'm not around young people as much as I used to. That might be the part of the problem.
No, I'm a big fan of the subcontractor model as well. I mean, like you said, I think it can really help you, to sort of manage the workload, because if you can't keep a full-time employee busy, well, you're still paying that, salary, versus subcontractor. I mean, you definitely want to keep them busy and try to keep them as, devoted to you as possible. But at the end of the day, if you can't, then, at least it's, you're not paying for that. And when they don't work out too, it's probably a lot easier to bring in a new sub than, to have to let an employee go and then go back through the recruiting and hiring.
Yeah. We used to track, we track, slippage on projects, and we used to break it down by labor and materials and subcontractors. And it was just, when I finally kind of got a clear picture into that, I was just like, just sick to my stomach. Like, the amount of slippage we had on our own labor was just mind boggling.
Yeah.
Because it's just honestly like really hard to, one, it's hard to estimate for that stuff. And 2, and once you have that estimate, it's like, it's really hard to manage employees towards those goals. And it's so easy for people to be like, well, you wrote the estimate, it's not my problem.
Yeah. So for your subs, do you have them, do they, go out, kind of bid on the job to you, look at, kind of do everything ahead of time to flush out, what their cost is going to be to you, and you fix price?
Yeah, we try to, we as much as possible, get fixed prices from our subcontractors, and we offer fixed prices to our fixed price contracts to our clients. So, it just seems like, philosophically, having the same from our subcontractors seems like the right thing to do. And I think not everybody's excited to do that out of the gate. I think not all of our partners in this market are used to that. There's a lot of time and material work around here. Yeah. But I think once people understand that, like, okay, I'm giving this price and it's fixed no matter how I perform, and if I can outperform what I get windfall. And I think once people kind of catch that understanding, they're super motivated by it.
Yeah.
So it typically works out for us pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely typically my recommendation, especially for people, starting off, it's just much easier to be able to use the subcontractors and try to worry about hiring and keeping people when you're still trying to get those first couple deals in. And building a business can be really hard. So as much as you can, kind of not put on payroll, and it's could be really helpful from a cash flow standpoint.
And the other key component of that is getting a good subcontractor agreement and using purchase orders. That was something we learned at some point, that like purchase orders are key to managing those subcontractor expenses on your project budgets.
Absolutely. How do you handle, like, payment? Do you 2 weeks, do you, like, is there a delay? Do you wait till project's completion? Do you pay along the way, paid on paid?
Yeah, we pay along the way. It's if you get us an invoice this week, we'll pay you next week is our thing. And generally that's the case. Cash flow is always a challenge, but for the most part, we can make that happen.
Yeah. And I assume with your customers, you're also, collecting up front and then along the way.
Yeah, we collect a deposit up front. And then we keep it super simple. We just do like a percentage of the total 6 or 8 times, depending on the duration of the project. And always try to have a little bit more, try to have what we call overbuild on the job, where they're paying for the job and not us.
Yeah.
Which is really hard. That's also really hard to manage with time and materials projects.
Sure.
Where we've got one project, I think probably the first substantial time and materials project that we've ever done. And it's almost finished now, but it's been a super huge challenge to keep that thing overbuild. I've just been behind on it since the day we started it.
Yeah. So, and you said your average price on a job is like a couple $100,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, if you divide our revenue by the number of the jobs we typically do, it's 250 is kind of the average, but we do projects from, I think our minimum project size now is like in the 150, 125 on up to $1.5 million.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's your ideal project look like?
We've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and we're in a pretty small market. Charlottesville's not a huge town. I talk to people like, in the Dallas market, you could work in one neighborhood and have twice the people that we have in our town. So, the way we approach it is to kind of offer a broad range of services to, a small segment of our pretty small market. So we're kind of targeting the right people more so, and kind of willing to take on, apply creative solutions to just about any problem that people come to us with. So, project types will do, like a master suite renovation or a kind of kitchen. A lot of people, they're coming to us like, hey, we have this house, we love the neighborhood, the house doesn't work for us because of X, Y, and Z. So we just try to figure out how to make X, Y, and Z go away and make the house perform better to modern standards. We work on a lot of 60-year-old houses. And
sure.
So, but we do, we'll do an occasional restaurant or office renovation. We're talking to some people about a furniture showroom, so different sort of stuff.
Interesting. So what's the competitive scene for you there?
It's hard to say. I know there's a few contractors that we compete with directly. But our process is such that doing the design build, if people go down the road with us and start a design project, like chances are we're going to build it. Like we've never had a project fall out of design. And let's say going back to this pricing ourselves out of work concept, like if we've set the expectations too low out of the gate and we design a $300,000 project and we told them it might be 150, let's say, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And we say, well, we can't do everything you want for less than 300. They're not going to move on and find another contractor to build that project. The project will just go away. So in that scenario, like we're just kind of competing with ourselves. Or competing with like, oh, well, we'd rather spend this money on retirement, or hey, we've got to send kids to college. Like those are the competing interests. I think we probably do compete with some other architects. I think when people are calling us, they're probably also calling another 1 or 2 design build firms, or they're calling an architect who's going to work with them to design the project and then go find a contractor. So
yeah, that makes sense.
What
would you say, like in terms of, kind of, again, you probably have learned a lot over the years, like, what would you, have told yourself 15 years ago if you wish you could have set up, better processes, systems, like, what do you think is the most important, people out there that might be a little bit earlier on trying to get their business, up and running and thinking about scaling it, what advice did you have there?
One of our core values is slow is fast. And I think that's like, it gets back, you can apply that to a lot of things, but this stuff takes time to figure out and understand, I think, and to get the experience behind you to know how to do things the right way, I guess. And so like, I think it's just important to be patient, with yourself. And like, I remember like learning at some point, like, oh, well, you just, to do estimating, you need to have your historical records of work. And it's like, well, I've only done 3 jobs. Like, I don't, I'm like, does that count as historical record? And of course it does, but it's not as deep as 10 years worth of data.
Yeah.
So it just takes time, and it's important to be patient. And like, I think it was, you hear stuff like, I think Thomas Edison, who tried 10,000 different ways to make the light bulb. And he said, well, I just learned 10,000 ways not to do it. It wasn't 10,000 failures. So I think that kind of approach is helpful to anybody trying to start off. And it's also a huge thing that changed for us, like going back to where you and I met, Eric, was that Remodelers Advantage group. Finding peer groups or some sort of mentorship or other, whether you're doing remodeling or new home building or single line contracting or whatever, but like finding other people that are running a business the way you want to be running a business, and link up with them and understand how they do it. Because the truth is, like, all this stuff has been figured out before. Like, it's not that unique. We're not trying to build a colony on Mars. We're just running construction companies. So there's people out there that you can learn from, and finding those people and linking up with them in whatever capacity is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I think the national groups are also really interesting because, I hear all the time people are worried about, networking with the competition right there in their local market, not wanting to, share their tips and strategies with them. But, when you can connect with similar businesses, but in different markets, that certainly can be a great resource for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the local meetings with NARI is one of the organizations active around here. Everybody kind of holds their cards close and doesn't want to talk too much. But if you start talking to, we're in this group with people from California and Wisconsin and Iowa, and it's like, whatever, I'll talk about anything because I'll never be competing with you.
Yeah, that's I'd say that's probably one of the neatest aspects of JobTread Connect, or our user conference that we do, is where people from all over the country can come in together and have that opportunity to share and network.
Absolutely.
And, not have the fear. So awesome. Well, maybe just kind of wrapping it up here. I mean, any kind of last lessons you want to share, or advice that you might have for others that think might help them grow and scale their business?
Yeah, I mean, given my approach to things and that, like, my like I said, just kind of the way I got into this by following my interest rather than a business plan. I think maybe I'm not the best person to ask that, but I think be patient, accept failure as part of the process, and keep at it. It just takes time to get this stuff figured out. And I mean, 15 years in for me, and I'm still figuring it out. And I don't know what my day would look like if I wasn't trying to figure something out every day.
Sure. So, well, you definitely, you got a great brand, great website, from what I've seen of your work, it looks awesome. It seems like Thanks. You guys are very well put together. I know you've been using JobTread now for a while, and, I can appreciate and can tell a great, well-organized, builder when I see it. And I'd say you guys are top notch there. So,
certainly good to hear.
Have a great business that you've run, and, hopefully, others can learn from you and follow in your tracks.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you today, Zach. Thanks for, again, for coming on and sharing your journey with everyone else. And yeah, look forward to seeing some more big successes for you along the way. And we'll catch you again, hopefully soon in Dallas. Otherwise, I know I'll be at the Remodeler Summit again. I think it's in Chicago this year.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yep.
That's good. I won't be there, but a few folks from our office will. So
okay,
that'll be good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, good talking to you, Zach. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.